Today we are going to graph the polynomials. We're going to use what we learned about degree and leading coefficient to help us. I'm also going to teach you a couple extra things about things that you can look for to help you identify which graph matches the polynomial. We're also going to talk about increasing and decreasing for each of these because that will be on your test eventually. Okay, we have the polynomial negative x to the third plus x squared plus 3x minus 3. Now keep in mind on your assignment, they may give you this not in standard form. So let's say it said 3x plus x squared minus x to the third minus 3. So it's the same thing, it's just a different order. When you're doing your online assignment, you need to look very carefully for which term has the largest exponent. We are going to focus in on the term that has the largest exponent because that term gives us our degree and our leading coefficient. So what is the degree from this term? Remember, the degree is the largest exponent. So the degree is 3, which is an odd number. The leading coefficient is the number in front of the term that has the largest exponent. So our leading coefficient is -1. That is a negative number. If our leading coefficient is negative, that means the right side of the graph is going to point down. When the degree is odd, what does that mean about the left side of the graph? Odd opposite, it's going to point up. So on your assignment, they're going to give you 4 potential graphs. The first thing that you should do is look for the one that points up on the left and down on the right. That will help you to narrow it down. Then there's a couple other features that you can look for. The other feature that we haven't yet talked about is the constant term. Whichever number doesn't have an x with it, that's the constant term. That number is your y-intercept. That's where it will cross the y-axis. So for this particular problem, on your online assignment, you would be looking for the graph where the left side is up, the right side is down, and it crosses through the y-axis at -3. If you actually needed to graph this, and we're going to do this because it's helpful to see the picture, let's remember how to graph using the graphing calculator. Where should we go first? Y equals. Clear out anything that's in there. Now take a look at my y equals screen. Is there anything wrong with my y equals screen? Do you see how plot 1 up there is highlighted? If I were to graph anything right now, I would get a dimension error. If you ever get some weird error that you don't understand, go back into your y equals and check those plots. You have to make sure those plots are turned off. All right, let's type this in. Negative x to the third. You have to use the negative button. You cannot use the minus button. Negative x raised to the third. When you raise things to the third in these calculators, if you have the calculator that actually puts it up in the exponent, you then have to push the right arrow to get down out of the exponent before you continue. If your calculator is a little bit older and it shows you the little caret and then the 3, then you're fine. You can keep going without worrying about it. Plus x squared plus 3x minus 3. You can push the graph button to see it. Sometimes you may need to do zoom 6 to reset the graph. So I'm going to jot that down in the notes. Zoom 6 resets the graph. It resets the window so that it goes -10 to 10, -10 to 10. So this is what our graph should look like. If I ever asked you to actually graph this, let the calculator do the hard work for you. Push second graph, get a table of values, and then record a couple of those that you know would fit on your graph. Okay, that ended up being a lot of points, but that's okay. So -2, 3, -1, -4, 0, -3, 1, 0, 2, -1. Okay, so this is definitely a weird connect the dots. Having the picture in the graphing calculator can definitely help you in how to connect these dots. Okay, let's talk about increasing and decreasing. For what x values is the function decreasing, and for what x values is the function increasing? Decreasing would be the portion of the graph where it's going downward, where it looks like it would have negative slope. So this piece right here that I'm highlighting in blue, that's a decreasing piece, and this over here is a decreasing piece. There are two places where this graph is decreasing. So I am going to write decreasing, and we will list those x values below. This graph is increasing. Oops. It's increasing in that little chunk right there. So over here, I'm going to write increasing. Okay. All right, decreasing. The graph is decreasing basically until we get to here. What is the x value there?
-1.
-1. It's decreasing from -infinity to 1. So from super far to the left, because this graph keeps going up and up and out to the left. So from -infinity on the left up until 1, that is a chunk of the graph where it is decreasing. So that portion of the graph, the left portion of the graph is decreasing. It is also decreasing from here and on. This point has an x value. Oops, that's a -1, isn't it? Decreasing from -infinity to -1. It is also decreasing from +1 to +infinity. So from 1 all the way to the right, that portion of the graph, it will be decreasing. So then increasing is the easy part. Increasing, it's this little chunk of the graph right here. What are the x values? Right here, the x value is -1. And on the right side, it's at +1. So between -1 and +1, that graph is increasing. So it's like we're splitting this graph up into chunks, the parts where the graph is going up, the parts where the graph is going down, and then identifying those x values. We'll do that again on the next one, and it might make more sense. Okay, on B, I would like you, on your own, to identify the degree, the leading coefficient, and sketch a shape. And here's how it's going to look on your test. I will give you some pictures of potential end behavior. So you'll have these 4 pictures, and you'll have to select which picture describes the end behavior of this polynomial. So on your own, find the degree, the leading coefficient, and decide which of those pictures would describe this polynomial. Okay, the degree is 4. That is an even number. The leading coefficient, what number is in front of this term? 1. A +1. That is positive. Okay, a positive leading coefficient means that the right side needs to point up. So it's either that first picture or the third picture. We now know that it's not that one and it's not that one. An even degree, what does that mean about the other side? Even, same? So it's this one. So we would select this as the correct picture. Okay, the other thing that I want you to notice is that the y-intercept is 4. Whatever number doesn't have an x, that's going to be your y-intercept. If there isn't a number without an x, that would mean your y-intercept would be at 0 because there's a plus 0 after all of that x business. Okay, let's plug this into the calculator and see a picture of this graph. Positive x to the 4th, get out of the exponent, minus x to the 3rd, get out of the exponent, minus 4x squared plus 4. Okay, are the ends doing what we expected the ends to do? Yes. And does this graph also cross over the y-axis at 4? Yes. So you should be able to, on your multiple choice questions on your assignment, pick out the graphs that both sides point up and where it crosses at 4. If that's not enough information, you can look at the graph on the graphing calculator and then truly match it. Okay, I'm going to take a moment to pick out some points and sketch this on my paper. If you want to do that as well, you can. I'm going to pause the video while I'm doing it to save some time. And then we'll talk about increasing, decreasing. This graph decreases in 2 places. It decreases on this left arm and in this middle piece. So it's decreasing from -infinity up to this point. What is the x value for that point?
-1.
To -1. So -infinity to -1. It's also decreasing from this x value, which is 0, to this x value, which is 2. Now let's talk about increasing. It is increasing in 2 places. The graph is going up in that little piece and this piece and on up to the right. Let's do the little piece first. I think this little piece is pretty easy because look at the decreasing. Do you see how there's a gap in the decreasing from -1 to 0? So -1 to 0, that's this little portion right in here, this little piece right here. That's where it's increasing. And then it's decreasing from 0 to 2. What is it doing from 2 to infinity? Increasing. So when you look at your decreasing and increasing values, if you put those values together, you should cover the entire number line. Okay, ultimately, your online assignment today, it is 6 problems. They are all multiple choice. You need to use what you know about degree, leading coefficient, y-intercept, and possibly put the graph in the graphing calculator to match the graph. You have a 2-answer click limit. So you can only click to check your answer twice. Keep that in mind. You can't just click, check, click, check, click, check, click, check to find the right answer. You're going to actually have to use your brain a little bit. Okay?